Root of Nightmares was too easy. I thought the raid was just fine. I thought the difficulty was just right. It was the easiest day one raid Bungie has ever made. I've got 13 reasons why this raid was perceived to be too easy, and I can guarantee that there's at least a few that you haven't thought of yet. And while it did take my team 14 hours to beat it, in hindsight, I do believe this was the easiest raid on day one that Bungie has ever made. And based on some reasons I'm about to list, I'm not sure that raids will ever be as hard as they used to be a few years ago. Number 1, less stress. Now that contest mode is 48 hours long, there's less stress to get it done in the first 24 hours. And with less stress comes better performance for most people, leading to easier success. Number 2, mod access. Last year's King's Fall raid had some really tight DPS checks that required Font of Might mods and other combos of mods to be able to squeeze all the damage out that you needed, especially for War Priest. And with the launch of Lightfall, everyone has easy access to the newly simplified versions of those mods, and that's leading to better builds, better damage, and more completions. Speaking of DPS, the DPS phases in this raid were not as tight as previous raids. Even with us only having 3 damage phases per boss instead of the usual 4, the DPS strategies were nothing new. Just stand in Well of Radiance and shoot Izanagi's Burden with rockets, and there weren't any mechanics to do bonus damage or anything. And speaking of mechanics, number 4 is the mechanics. They were dungeon-like mechanics. The raid's mechanics were requiring very little teamwork, and in fact, most of the time it was really just 1 or 2 people doing anything specific while everyone else just stays alive. People often compare contest mode raids to Last Wish Day 1. The number of things that are different between then and now is massive. For example, nobody was anywhere near the appropriate power level when it launched. People were like 50 light under the whole raid, not 20 power like we are today. And Last Wish was before Bungie started implementing mechanics that are similar, yet evolve throughout the raid. Last Wish just had different mechanics for basically all 6 encounters. That's if you counting Queen's Walk as well, which I think you should. That raid was insane. Number 5 is the power grind. Like I just mentioned from Last Wish, Bungie has made the power grind to get into the day 1 raid much easier. Basically, you just complete the Legend campaign and do a few pinnacles, and you've got about 10 days to do that, so easy peasy. Number 6, Subclass 3.0. Last year's rework of the 3 light subclasses brought so much power into our hands, it really does make the entire game easier. You've got Jolt, Ignition, Volatile Rounds, so many Overshields, Restoration, and a very high ability uptime. We are powerful. Number 7 is Starfire Protocol. I don't know how, but it's kind of hard to believe that Heart of Inmost Light got the nerf and not Starfire. I mean, Heart of Inmost Light needed it, but Starfire Protocol doesn't even have an ornament for Bungie to sell this season, or last season, or ever. Why is Starfire Protocol still just existing how it is? With the new solar fragments, Starfire now has strong, unlimited damage and consistent healing, as well as the standard Well of Radiance that every Warlock loves being forced onto for every raid. And I couldn't find the stat anywhere, but I'd love to see how many Warlocks completed the raid during contest mode versus Hunters and Titans. Number 8 is Eager Edge, Well Skating, and Mechanic Windows. All of these 3 things work together to make a main mechanic of the raid need 0 teamwork. You just zoom around. And I'm not saying I want Eager Edge or Well Skate to get nerfed or that they're the actual problem. I just think that this might have been something that was somehow overlooked during designing the raid. Number 9 is that loadouts are in the game now. They're not just on DestinyItemManager.com. Now we can just save the loadouts in-game, and they don't reset your super unless your loadout changes to a different super or you're swapping a fragment between the two builds. But it has made min-max raiding even more powerful. Swap to your Aeons build, one click. All right, it's time for DPS, swap to the DPS build, we're ready for that. It's making min-max raiding even easier. Speaking of loadouts, number 10 is YouTubers. Yeah, I mean, think about all of the YouTubers out there that are making new build guides every day, basically. They're making new powerful builds basically every day, easily accessible with Destiny Item Manager links. There's a lot of power in the game, and it's so easily available to everybody. All right, number 11. This is the one that Bungie probably won't be able to do anything about, and is probably the one most people might not be thinking about either, and that is player skill. Do you really think that Dado, Saltagrepo, any of these other really powerful, high-end gamers are only as skilled as they were 5 years ago? No way! You know they're not. We grow, we learn, we adapt, and over time, the job that Bungie has to make a super challenging experience has become even harder, especially while trying to balance it out with things that are fun and not 100% confusing or boring. I remember seeing some clip with Shroud saying something about gaming. Somebody asked him some type of question, I think about like going back and experiencing whatever game again for the first time or something. And he basically was saying, you know, gaming can't ever be like it was. People have figured out gaming for the most part, and you can't go back to the good old days and experience the same challenge again because things are different now and there's less for people to figure out. Number 12, it's an easy one. Damage resist.
Oh, Christian's still alive!
He's gonna die before we respawn though.
Watch. If he doesn't though, this will be the mega pull through. Oh no, he's gonna die. I have 10 seconds! I have 10 seconds! Just hold out, Christian! Hold it out! I got 5 seconds!
Just spam your respawn button. Spam your respawn, spam it.
Back, boy! Let's go!
When Bungie introduced mods that could reduce the damage we took, the game got easier. And they kept introducing more and more ways to get the damage resist. When Last Wish came out, there wasn't damage resist in the game. There were no mods. There were no things you could do to just get your damage resist like we have today. It's just different. It's just different. And I mean, Bungie could take damage resist away if they want, but I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. Number 13 is probably the one that makes me the most upset, and that is the lack of tormentors. Seriously, only the first encounter had tormentors, and it was only one at a time. Sure, it was a boss tormentor, you know, a mini boss tormentor, but that's it. I mean, yeah, there were some anti-barrier champions, but outside of that, there could have been so many more tormentors throughout the whole raid, and it would have been much more challenging. You would actually have to kill enemies in the second encounter. Can you imagine? Are there any more reasons you can think of as to why the raids might be easier these days? Leave a comment. I'd love to see it. Also, you know, be kind out there, okay? You know, I know that there's a lot of people who think that it was just the right difficulty or it was too hard. There's, you know, tons of people think it's too easy. There's people all over, okay? Be kind, okay? Because we I am so sick of all of the rudeness that is so easily available on the internet. Let's be kind to each other with our opinions, okay? And understand that your experiences aren't exactly the same as everybody else's, and everybody could use more kindness in their lives, okay? Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching the video. I appreciate you massively. If you're hearing these words right now, you've got to be one of my top 100 favorite people, okay? That's it.